Vacation are here after work.
Perfect. Before the, not necessarily a holiday, but almost one.
It's kind of
It's
because
kind of.
tomorrow is not actually official holidays. It's kind of an optional holiday, which means a lot for the productivity of the country if everyone's away anyway.
No, but it completely shows how good we are with scheduling because we had no idea until last week and we're like, oh
Absolutely,
damn. No,
absolutely.
anyway, uh, good afternoon or good evening, everyone who's joining us today. We're starting another session of the ABC, the AI Builders Club, here in Lisbon. This is our sixth session since we started these meetups, and the goal of these meetups are just an environment where we explore from the voices of people who are doing it live what's going on with AI, especially when it comes to building digital products, right? Um, we have several people in the past covering vibe coding, product managers, founders, and today we have Pedro Gustavo Torres,
Hey.
senior engineering leader at Salsify, and today we're going to have a very interesting conversation around how is AI coding affecting organizations. I think it's a very interesting topic in the sense that we've been having a lot of advancements, especially on the last 3-4 months, and it's been crazy for those who are in the space, and many of those actually affect the individual level, right? So there's a lot of talks about individual performance, different developers, builders optimizing their own personal workflows, but at the same time, the reality of how software is built today is that it involves teams, it involves organizations, it involves an entire development life cycle, and we've been seeing these challenges over and over again, which is, okay, it's cool, everyone is boasting 10x personal improvements, and then you go to the organizations and people don't really see that needle moving. Pedro is laughing already, and yeah, today Pedro is gonna have senior engineering leader of Salsify, also one of the hosts of CTO Portugal, which is transitioning to CTO Portugal AI. Gonna share a little bit of his experience and insights. Good evening, Pedro. Thank you to have here.
Thank you.
Is AI a fad or not?
No, that's a good question. Pretty much because I think that maybe 2 years ago, 1 year ago, people could definitely have a lot of questions around, okay, so is it a bubble? Even today, people are discussing if this is a bubble or not, especially around all the billions of dollars that's, it's being drained to this area. I think we've seen lots and lots of, let's say, waves or movements, right? We had IoT, we had blockchain, we had so many things that, some definitely adopted and definitely make a lot out of it. Still, a lot of people were really skeptical around it. I think that even today, a lot of people are around some of these things. I think AI, at least, is proving to be something completely different, right? Regardless of you being a software engineer, working from home, being a gardener, cleaning up your swimming pool, whatever you do, I think that AI just, arrived in a, with big bang. And it's interesting because I see it going in very different angles. So not only in our day-to-day lives, the way that we work, even the way that Google search is being replaced, right? Like, I think that Google was like that big technology that spanned generations. So let's say kids use it, our grandmothers use it, and now Gemini is kind of trying to take over, what Google search was, right? And so I definitely see AI going so many fronts. I think it's impossible that it's a fad. It can't be like that at all.
So Pedro, tell us a little bit more about you, about your role at Salsify, right? And you compared AI with different other technologies. Some of them have their ups and downs, other maybe died, others still are proving themselves. But you're saying that AI is not a fad. So also tell us a little bit more about how are you seeing it uh, on the day-to-day slowly coming together in your environment, in
Sure.
your day-to-day?
So the way that I see AI adoption right now in my environment and in the industry in particular is I see almost like two different speeds. So I see solopreneurs, small companies, small not in a bad way, like, 3 people,
Yeah.
maybe all of them co-founders, AI native. It's AI first, AI last. It's like AI everything, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a multiplier of everything that you can do. So usually the best analogy that I have for that is the evil guy of Spider-Man, the Dr. Octopus, with all these arms. That's exactly how I see people using AI right now. And the people are using it with excitement. They are willing to fail, to learn. They try again and again. They have like a resiliency times 100. Like it's amazing. Now, if you shift into, let's say, an organization that has 150 engineers, maybe more. Look, even here, Cloudflare, I don't know how many engineers you have here, but maybe 800? Here in Lisbon. And global? 1,600.
1600, yeah.
Okay, imagine this, right? So there are so many processes, ways of working that, of course, everyone changed the way that they work, throughout the years, right? The way that we build software back in 10 years ago is wildly different than what we do today, right? We have CI/CD pipelines, we have God knows how many things. When I started, we didn't have any of that, right? If you had the SVN to store your code, you were already lucky. That's how it was. And now all of a sudden, you bring like this AI that changes completely the software development lifecycle and the way that you interact with your craft, regardless of being with the code or not. It's so scary for so many people that SaaS companies, with this sort of size or similar, in 2025 was just all about experimenting slowly, cautiously. If you did something, it didn't go well, all the other engineers would look, down on you and say, Jesus, you're
AI
not
flop,
you're not a great engineer. How could you submit this pull request with this garbage? But I think that in 2026, this year, what I'm hearing from all the boards from the companies that I interact with, it's the go time.
Okay.
Like it's no more time for
So you're
experiments.
seeing a mandate from above.
Yes, or a strong encouragement that unless you have a strong, valid reason, you should be using the Cloud Codes, Codex of the world.
Okay. And what's the reaction on the teams?
So that's a good one because
That's a good answer.
you don't see a lot of excitement
Okay.
at all, which is remarkable. Again, like we are all human beings, so by nature we don't love change. Any of us, right? Even our routine, we usually like to grab coffee in the same place. We love to go, out for dinner on a Friday, usually on the same place everybody knows you, and all that sort of things. Now, imagine that you're online, you hear the CEO from companies like Salesforce and whatnot saying we probably need just half of the engineers. Okay. You see, blog posts saying that, subsidizing tokens, that money needs to come from God knows where. And all of a sudden, you're starting to hear, here and there that people are being 10x, the engineer that they were. And you are an engineer, and you say, I'm not seeing any of that for me. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it starts to become scary. And why? Because an engineer that was really good at working without AI doesn't mean that you're going to be excellent working with AI. And so it's almost like the game is completely changing in terms of rules, which means that if you were super comfortable, it doesn't mean that you should be now. And I think that everyone should be, mildly anxious to do something about this.
What changes then? So what does an engineer that was good pre-AI has to do to keep that level now with?
Oh, I think you first and foremost, you really need to embrace it because okay. If you just don't embrace and you're just against it, you're not well informed. You're just saying that you don't want to use it just for the sake of not using it, or just because you don't really want to be pushed out of your comfort zone. And I think that first you really need to embrace so that you understand, you used it, and then you can see, the good and the bad that comes from it. Because again, like AI is not a silver bullet. It's not mean just because I have Cloud Code that I'm going always to write, beautiful code that is incredibly resilient and secure, that can scale to God knows how many millions of people here, like we are here in this office. It doesn't happen like that. And so I really think that first you really need to embrace and have some sort of discipline. And why? Because AI for the first time is the technology that moves everyone from a very deterministic approach. The calculator, the computer, like you do something and the outcome is exactly always the same unless you do some random stuff like the things that we saw here in the entrance of this building, right?
Yeah,
And
that.
you get the randomizer. It should always have the same sort of output. And with AI, it doesn't, right? It's highly probabilistic. And if you just put, like a comma on a different place on a sentence,
Yep.
the output can be completely different. And just like we are reading online everywhere, is that AI and LLMs are extremely good at accomplishing tons of tasks, but they are not mind readers. And so if you don't pass your context to the machine, there's no way they're going to give what you want.
So, but for an organization that needs kind of somehow deterministic outputs, how do they deal with that in a way that they can benefit from expected boost of performance of AI? Otherwise, they will just be constantly redoing work, and over time, there's no performance at all. There's a little bit this argument. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So that's a great one, because if we go back, a few years ago, you would see like Netflix pushing like their open source projects for everyone to adopt. You would read like, delicious articles about other companies sharing what they were doing and really benefiting the community and all industry and all companies in general, right? Like there was no sort of rivalry on, let's say, I'm not going to give away my secret. No, like things would be pushed out, like Kubernetes from Google, like so many things that are, become open source because everyone wants to strive together. But we are not seeing this here.
Okay.
Right, so I'm fully convinced that people are really trying to figure shit out. Everyone is trying to understand exactly how this should be used in the best way. What I see right now is there's a very clear intent of reducing the probabilistic side of an LLM. And so you can have, spec-driven development, the way that you feed a requirement, the way that you can assess a plan that is being provided by, the Cloud Codes of the world. And you really try to interact with the machine in the most disciplined way, expecting for that to be, cross-pollinizing the rest of the engineering. And for instance, even at Meta, there's a very well-known use case that was the prompts that the engineers were doing to the LLM were actually being shared across the department.
Okay.
So that people could learn, with the other engineers how to prompt better the LLM, although it actually backfired because people were saying, I don't want my prompts to be seen by other engineers. And so what they observed was actually people starting to prompt in their native languages to try to get some sort of confidentiality.
Why? Why would that happen?
Because the truth be told, again, like this is the first time that I feel like there is almost like an internal competition about, I was the better engineer, I still need to be the better engineer. Why should people see my prompts? They should only judge my code and not how I interact or I write. And it's becoming super interesting.
You think that somehow personality comes out when the way that people write their prompts, and people are used to just, people don't really know my personality, and they will start.
No, to your point, the interesting thing is, so back before AI, we always had this say that was, always judge the code, never judge the coder.
Yep.
And so let's say you submit a shitty PR, I would never say, oh, you didn't do a good job. No, it's, oh, this code should be bad. Oh, you should change this. Again, it's all about the code because the code doesn't have feelings, right? And so we were kind of well prepared to deal with that. Now that it's the prompt and how you write and how you create your sentence, I don't think that we are, moving into that level of exposure and being willing to see or show the way that I'm working. And so I think there is almost like a kind of a clash of, this goes against, my privacy. Why are people looking into this stuff? People should be just looking at my output, right? And again, like, because it's probabilistic, the output is not so relevant because it's actually the prompt that eventually could lead to that. And so I think it's much more about the prompt and the plan than the code itself, that, it will be relevant one day, so.
Okay, that's super, super interesting. So again, and back to the organization perspective, right? So you said solopreneurs, individuals, you see them all the time on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or whatever, everyone boasting 10x productivity, is doing a lot of amazing stuff. One guy, two guys, like doing a bunch of stuff. then you go to the and girls. Sorry, I apologies. You're completely right.
Great remark. Thank you
Um,
for that.
and at an organizational level, right? So tell me a little bit of exactly what you are seeing and how do you think like teams should start working or engineering leaders start to position themselves in order uh, to change the way that the output is created in a more performant way, or if that doesn't make sense anymore, because we were talking a little bit earlier about the overload of output. It's something that humans cannot even manage. So
True.
there's all these tensions. What do you think about those?
No, so there's definitely a lot to unpack there. So first and foremost, the guy from OpenClaw, he was, there was a huge burst of anger when he said, "Oh, I don't even look to the code that I ship anymore." But look, let's try to capture that moment and look at it like maybe in 1 year, 2 years max time, because I'm pretty sure that he's right. I think that in 2 years' time, no one will look at code, or let's say not no one, but let's say 90 to 95% of all engineers in the world. And why do I say this? Because of course, there are still a lot of engineers that really need to go low level to figure out God knows what, and that's totally fine. But they just represent the minority, right? Like everyone else is just doing the regular, crude application and other stuff that are so much more high level. And if we go back to not the time of dinosaurs, but punch cards, zeros and ones, assembly, then the .NETs and the Javas and the compilers, the frameworks, and now we are just having that. So I think that we always experiment different levels of abstraction of our work that always were met with a lot of resistance because of the change. And what does that mean for me? And am I not going to be good enough in this new way of working? So that to me is very, very interesting. And I think that because of that being true, what I think that will become the true artifact of whatever we do is all the plans that that you're interacting with an agent, you will need to start storing them, and you'll need to analyze them. You will need to understand exactly how you interact with the agent. It can be a contract. Some people are calling them the spec, and it's even the spec-driven development. Again, it's just a very kind of almost like a template way for you to interact with the agent, so that let's say I'm interacting the way that you're also interacting the same way, and so it's extremely likely that if we interact with the LLM, the output will be very close, which is close enough, which will be fine. And so I see that becoming like the true artifacts that the software engineer really needs to be concerned about, and not so much about the code. It becomes almost like kind of a very respectful second-class citizen, like flying coach sort of thing, right? You're still flying, but it's coach, not executive.
Okay.
And that's how I'm really seeing that moving.
Do you see that shift happening? Are people open to that shift? Because that's a big shift. You're just saying you don't need to review code, and every time you speak with maybe engineering teams, it's all about code reviews.
Yeah, it will take time. And you know what? Because here's the thing, like, first and foremost, you really need to shift your mind and understand that although you're not writing lines of code, you're still building. You're just building bigger blocks, right? You're just thinking at a macro level of what you're building, what you're orchestrating. And I think that is still building. So you're just not going into each single line of code to make something super beautiful, because sure, readability is important, but again, maybe in 2 years' time, it will be much more important for a machine to read than a human. But again, that's just some futurology. But is that sort of shift that makes people more uncomfortable, right? Like, again, like, I don't know how compelling it will be to be, just reviewing pull requests, imagine, right? Or just reviewing plans. Because one thing is to say, okay, I'm the creator, I'm doing my craft, I'm writing my lines of code, look at this code, it's so beautiful. And now all of a sudden, you're reviewing stuff that a machine did for you.
The code, right? But you can have plan reviews,
or
right?
the plan, right? Like, again, imagine just looking at plans. Again, like the entire day you're just looking at plans that that Cloud Code spit out.
How is that different than just looking at code?
I don't know, because you're building that stuff, right? The code is like you're creating something, you're deciding how it's going to be, the class and all, and then you had just a machine saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think, human? Sure, looks good. Sure, go ahead. 10 or 15 minutes later, hey, human, what do you think about this? Sure, go ahead. And I think that this sort of change, again, I think people eventually will appreciate that, but
It sounds dystopic.
it's really different in the way that you live your day to day. And so I think that humans will require to go through that change.
Okay. And but what's the actual impact? The other thing that we've been speaking a lot, and we already touched it, is the SaaS apocalypse, or
Oh, shit. Yeah.
or the build versus buy, and
Oh, God. Yes, that's a good one.
and the amount of output that now can start to happen, right?
Yep.
Are we going to see that or not? What is your view? Uh, how do you actually think that there will be a material impact of AI on the amount of software that exists in the world, that it's actually used, or is just prototypes that are vibe coded somewhere?
So, so we are already seeing it.
Okay.
So it's not even a do you think, like we are already seeing it. Now, eventually correlation is not causation, and maybe we are just very unfortunate because, with the boom of vibe coding and AI, we are seeing, SaaS companies actually stalling a lot on their sales.
Okay.
And so maybe it's like, hey, look, this is just a big coincidence, but I don't think it is. I think what happened is, so pretty much everything is a subscription now, right? Like you probably have like just on your personal life, like 10 to 20 subscriptions, right? Like for everything, like it's Netflix, it's Spotify, is God knows what. Like again, like even going out to a gym, like everything is a subscription. You don't own anything, right? Just paying. And when that became actually a business, for these big corporates, like, the Salesforce of the world, like everyone was a customer. And I think that some of those customers actually shouldn't even be on the first place, because maybe they really just needed a minor use case. But hey, if you're using Salesforce in the Workday, you're a successful business because that's what everyone else is doing. And so I think there was a lot of kind of, of copying, whatever everyone was doing. But then, vibe coding came up. And sure, you have all the security issues and all the resilience. You have all of that. You always have you will always have that, and that's fine. But now I can just tackle my own use case, and it will be for free, or it will cost me like $10 a month. So why should I be paying out like 1K to Salesforce or 50K, right? Because I don't need like this amount of software. I just need to be solving this. The problem is that to these companies, everyone sold them this because the incentive was to sell everything that you could, and you were like, sure, more is better. I'll just pay for that. But now that this game changed completely, we are seeing actually, customers walking away from SaaS. It's already being observed. Now, the other interesting thing that you also mentioned that is interesting is that, okay, so now everyone is a builder, so what's happening? So if you think, from a system thinking perspective, you always have to have a bottleneck, right? It's just really, and it's a matter of understanding where the bottleneck is. And for quite a few years, let's be honest, eventually the bottleneck was in the R&D department, okay? Because a project takes 9 months to be built or something like that, or shipped. And now, of course, things can be tackled faster, regardless of being in the 200 engineering department or even on a small company. The problem now, in my opinion, is actually the distribution of it, right? Because imagine that, I don't know, everyone plays Candy Crush. I don't think people do, but anyways, let's pretend it's 5 years ago. Like anyone can now vibe code a Candy Crush. So how am I, Pedro, the human, deciding which Candy Crush I want to use when I have, like, let's say 1,000 of them in the Play Store or in the Apple one? I think that becomes now the new problem. That is, if building is not a topic anymore, and you can build again within reason, so why should I choose, product A instead of product B? And now I think I think this will very soon be the marketeer's time. That is okay. So I'll need to be the guy that will need to position my product in a way that will be consumed, because, building it won't be a problem anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, at least
So
for the majority of
marketing
the use
skills
cases.
are
Because the tools are there. Like building, it's becoming more democratizable than ever, right? Like
true,
anyone
right?
can build, right? You just, you open the Lovable of the world. Again, we are not sponsored by Lovable, but you open Lovable and you just create a website. It's how easy it is. You just write something. You say, hey, I run a print shop. This is my address. I like blue and yellow. Create a website for me.
And do you see that happening again inside the organizations, outside the engineering department, like people building tools for themselves?
Love it. Yes, absolutely. So, for
Okay.
instance, what is actually super curious is that what I've been observing in companies that, for instance, the sales department is way ahead of AI adoption than the engineering department.
Okay.
And why is that? Because again,
fun.
it's an internal tool. They probably use, again, I'm saying Salesforce, and I'm again, care less about Salesforce, but imagine.
It's being recorded.
I know. So Salesforce is really cool product, folks. Just hoping not hurting my career. But the thing is, people need to have way more tailored use cases and way more tailored software. And so what I see sales companies do is they just vibe code something. It's not public facing, so all the security stuff and whatever, it's not as impactful. It doesn't need to scale to millions of users because again, it's probably just used by 20 people or 50 people or something like that. And so I'm seeing software.
They get really excited because they build it themselves, right?
They build it themselves. It's super tailored to their needs. They think about a feature. They have the feature like in a week, right? And you can have the lovables and the riplets, whatever it is. And I already seen use cases where that's actually true. So instead of you paying 100K for a solution that you need to adapt to it, you're actually creating your own. And again, it doesn't take even months. It just takes weeks. And it just works. And so you actually, it's hilarious. You see some departments way ahead of engineering. And why? Because they are creating the products that they need in order for them to be better at their jobs, right? Which is slightly different for engineering because.
That's super interesting. So, tricky question. Why do we still need engineering?
That's a good question. So I think we still need engineering. I think that even if you're vibe coding, if you know what you're doing, if you have the background, it helps a ton.
Okay.
It really does, right? And again, and it depends. One thing is to say, I want to build the website for my mom. Super easy, right? You don't need engineering. You did before. Probably would pay, I don't know, 800 euros or 1,200 euros for someone to build your website. Now you can do it yourself. Now imagine creating like a Cloudflare product, vibe coding it. Good luck. Right?
But do you think that AI can accelerate that? Guided by the right people? Or
that's the whole promise, right? So that's the whole promise that it should accelerate. But then again, if you think, from a system perspective, okay, so now code gets generated way faster. What about product management?
Okay.
What about the specification? What about the marketing campaign? What about the entire system? Because again, the problem was never just the code, right? Sure, it takes time for the code, right? And sure, and you will have the bug, and it will be a pain. But you have all the other functions, from the conception of the idea till the moment that you really put it out in front of a customer. And all of that is not speeding 10x sometimes, right? And so, sure, you can just spit out code like crazy, or you have all the involved departments of that value chain, all of them speeding up, or it really doesn't matter here in the middle, you're speeding up like crazy if everyone else is slow. Yeah. And then you also have then the last frontier, that is, how much change do we humans are willing to take? Because if you start as a startup, you're shipping, let's say, daily. Then you become a scale up and probably you are shipping, daily or weekly or maybe monthly because you now have users and there needs to be, knowledge-based improvements and announcing the feature and so on and so forth. But when you become to millions of users of software, you're actually seeing users saying, we can't handle this sort of change. Please make, quarter releases. There's no way I can change my entire department because of this feature. So you really need to slow down. We saw that in big companies, right? And so even now, if companies start to shipping crazy, features, left and right, how can all other companies absorb all that change? And so if you're actually just changing for the sake of changing and people not adopting it, then it also becomes kind of wasted. You're just, just throwing features out the door and people won't be able to take them. And so I think that very quickly we'll hit a bottleneck somehow.
That's very interesting, right? So to that point, what's the point of AI here in the middle then? So why accelerate if there's not even a way to absorb that acceleration?
So that's a good question, because I think that there was room for acceleration, but probably not like a 10x or 100x acceleration, because again, the day only has 24 hours and there's so much you can take, right? For instance, a good example of this. So one thing that engineers now are doing, the ones that are more more hyped with, more pumped with this, is opening multiple Cloud Code sessions, right? There are, tons of projects now trying to solve actually that problem. That is, look, any of you try to open, 4 or 6 windows, doing stuff, and try to deal with that. It's confusing, right? And so we are seeing very interesting products, right? Like there's a product that, I'm pretty sure that you can talk about. There's one that is very famous because it's coming from a guy that wrote the Vibe Code book, Steve Yegi, that is called Gastown, because he's pretty much seeing what's right next problem to be solved. That is, sure, I can be, a super engineer that I'm switching contexts back and forth, but we need to orchestrate all of this. There's just too much activity, and I can't take it from a cognitive load perspective. And so I don't know if anyone here did pair programming back in the day, but if you did pair programming like the entire day, you would get, at 5 p.m. like exhausted. You couldn't even talk to a human anymore. Yeah. Like it'd be, gosh, I can't take this anymore. Now imagine yourself in front of your computer, divided by 6 squares, something happening on
you're
all
pair
those...
programming times 6. You're constantly chatting.
It's crazy, right? Like, and so that's the thing. That is, the tools are amazing, and again, like building became way more democratizable than it was. But I just don't see this, becoming like 1000x, and you don't need software engineers, and everything now is for free. Because again, like there's always humans. We also will have humanoids. So that will become interesting when humanoids start using AI to code. I don't know, like something like that. Just wait 2 years for Elon Musk and you'll see what I'm talking about. But that's the thing, right? Again, like we'll need software engineers. Having humans in the loop is still something super interesting if you really, need to be extra careful about what you're shipping. Because again, remember that you're not just shipping code, you're shipping your reputation. And if you don't have customers, you have 1 or 2, it's fine, to just be YOLO, just whatever it is ready, just put it out there. But all of a sudden, if you have 150 million ARR or 300 million, and you're just, just shipping stuff that you don't, they don't even look twice, you can just be completely out of business in just a few months, Like, remember, CloudStrike, all the issues that we had, with other software companies where, stock just went down. And so again, like, this is an amazing tool, but it's not like you just don't need humans anymore and everything will be just done.
No, that makes sense. So in order to continue and maybe a few final questions, and then I also open a few questions from the audience.
Sure.
It's usually a part of the of these sessions too. So let's say again, and on the context again of the organization, and let's assume that there's demand, right? Or meaning we want to increase the output because the demand is out there, right? What should organizations, teams, leaders, and individuals maybe start doing, or what things on the mindset or on the organizational structure should slowly start to change in order for people to embrace AI to produce this output? What?
Good one. So a friend of mine has a mantra that is demonstration defeats discussion. And what he means by that is that, sure, people can talk about how amazing AI is and how Cloud Code is effective, because for every fan, you will always have someone saying that it actually doesn't work, right? And pretty much because maybe someone did something not super well, and then people love confirmation bias, and so it's like, okay, because this didn't work well, that's why this is total crap and doesn't work, right? And again, because people just really want to anchor on the examples to know that they are right, and so what we can definitely see, or at least the way that I'm seeing this is, start piloting stuff. Imagine that you have a team that should build a web product. Do a side-by-side. Grab someone or 2 engineers with Cloud Code and have a team building the product, and on the side another team trying to build the same product just with AI.
Almost
exactly, side by side. Fast forward 2 weeks. What happened? Where each team is. Can we learn something from it? Because again, it doesn't need to
be... That's an important point, right? We're going to learn something. It's not necessarily the result, but the learning points that
you get. Or it could be, for instance, just an excellent kickstart. Imagine that actually the secret is start the project with AI and then finish with some human touches, for instance, right? Again, it doesn't need to be all or nothing of you're just doing all the lines of code by hand or just vibe coding the stuff out of it. You know what I mean? And so I think that try to do some experiments. but good ones, right? Let's say don't go to Gemini and ask them to output code when you're not even using like a Codex, for instance, or a Cloud Code, right? So use the right tool for the job. That is the first one. And if it actually the tool makes a mistake, let's assume that eventually could be your prompt that was not the best one, right? Because it's not just saying, see, crap that it gave it to me. No, like let's be very thoughtful on the way that we approach, very methodical, but let's do side-to-side comparisons. And I think that if people see the good that comes out of that, then people get to be convinced, because again, it's not about strong opinions weakly held. It's about actually seeing the real thing working and being able to compare it side by side, apples and apples and not apples and oranges.
And do you think people should start with greenfield projects for this, picking up on existing code bases, maybe trying a mix?
So greenfield projects, I think, are definitely the easiest ones. Although, for example, even in a legacy project, I think that AI is already giving tons of benefit, because imagine that I'm onboarding you in a project with 10,000 lines of code.
Yeah.
It's going to take you forever to understand that, right? But if you go and launch Cloud, can I say, teach me this, or I want to do something in this app. He will say, oh, give me some time. Token, belly full of tokens. Oh, it's here, you should do it here, blah, blah, blah. Right? Like even that, it's already being used by folks, right? So I think that in legacy projects it's being proven, but I think in greenfield, it's where you should have the less risk, and it should be the safest for you to try something out.
Cool. But one final point, that's a very interesting also use case, which is using these tools for onboarding and for learning. Do you see, and that's actually something that can be easily institutionalized, right? Maybe
Sure.
Don't use AI to build code, but always use AI to get onboarded, right? Do you see that happening? Do you see that's a good way to start bringing AI tooling to the organizations? What's the overall feedback that you get on those experiences?
No, for sure. So I think that all departments are trying to become AI something, right? And so, the onboarding, training, legal, right? Like all the marketing, all departments are embracing AI. And so, again, this is the part that's interesting. It's not just about AI, for coding. It needs to be AI for everyone in order for everyone to be faster. Because again, if you have just one part faster and everyone else, slow, it won't work very well. But I'm seeing all departments adopting it, right? So writing a letter to, to someone, with kind of all legal letters. People are doing that. A marketing campaign, people are doing that. Producing a video, usually to take God knows how long, you can have that in minutes. Onboarding folks, training, everything right now should be used with AI. It doesn't need to be exclusive with AI, but should be used with AI. And if you're not using it, you're just, you're becoming a laggard very, very quickly. Again, because the way that AI is being adopted and the way that it's changing, even what we are saying here today in 3 months probably already changed completely.
Yeah.
Right? And that is something that, again, us humans have never seen this before. Yeah. So yeah, I think everyone should be using AI. I'm using AI, even for my own career, right? Let's say you have a career coach. Guess what? You can grab an agent, say, look, you're now this, here's exactly what I need you from. You're an expert coaching in executives, blah, blah, blah. I'm at this point in my career, tell me what I should be doing. And he will do that for you, right? And so, like, everyone can use AI, right? Like, absolutely. It's the beauty of an MD file, right? Like, you just really tell, the agent what he needs to know or needs to act, and he will just do it.
So MD files will become more pervasive in organizations as...
Oh, for sure. Like, it will become one of the source of truth, right? I think that plans, specs, and MD files will become more important than code. Right, that's the thing.
That's very interesting, because you are touching like not only the engineering department but all the other departments, right? But and when you think about the product life cycle, you have much more roles than just the devs, right? And
of course,
you mentioned other parts of the organization are embracing, or you see. Other parts of the organization like sales and legal or HR embracing more. What about other roles in the overall software development lifecycle, like functional analysts, UI UX, product managers? Do you what do you see on these roles? What's the adoption, and are they getting closer to devs because of that, or getting farther away?
I think they are getting closer.
Okay.
I definitely see a lot of people adopting the tools with extreme efficiency, right? Like a business process analyst that probably takes them forever to, go through some queries or create some reports that can get done in minutes. Right now, presentation for the board gets done in minutes, right? Like right now, AI is injected everywhere, and so absolutely from a PM, I probably don't need Figma anymore. Why should you even use Figma, right? You just go to Lovable, say, hey, here's the look and feel of my app. I want a new feature. This, and that. Here's the living spec.
And you get conversations from the PM saying, "Oh, against the developer," and previously maybe the developer say, "Oh, that would take 2 weeks to do it," and then you say, "Oh, I just did it in Lovable. You should do it next day." Do you see that
Not
that happen?
yet. So that's hilarious because I definitely can see a future with that, but I haven't seen it yet. So I definitely see that people are still trying to be very respectful.
Okay.
Kind of okay, let's not rock the boat too much. But absolutely, I think it will be a matter of time of people starting to really challenge someone that says, look, this will take 2 or 3 months to be built, and like a CEO coming up and say, how come if I already did this?
Yeah.
Right. And so, but again,
that will be an interesting tension.
It will be, because pretty much if that already happened in the past, a lot of pushback on estimates and stuff like that. Now that you can even build something, you'll become even more sure that you actually know what you're talking about against an R&D team. And so I can definitely see some interesting tension. But then what happens is that if you're in the right culture, those tensions shouldn't arise, right? Because again, assume positive intent. We are all doing our best. If you're in the toxic culture, probably it will become even more toxic. Why? Because AI, again, will probably augment that, right? Because of all this stuff that is happening. It's
but
super
even in a positive way, it can arrive on.
Sure, it can become interesting.
Cool. Thank you, Pedro. Great conversation so far. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Opening up a little bit some questions. We still have a bit of time from the audience, 15, 20 minutes. So one question here, then another one.
To bounce on this last comment,
Yes.
because what you said that you'd never seen before, I just saw it like a month and a half ago.
Okay.
Amazing.
On one of the projects, the guy came and said, well, this is the project I want. And instead of just showing a spec, he said, hey, I had this little talk with, it was actually with Gemini and Gemini 3 had come out. Hey, and he's done this for me. Here it is. So he was saying basically he had done a small POC. Luckily, we're not in a toxic culture, and the guy is pretty smart and he knows, okay, I've done this. It's got a certain level of reliability, which is relatively low. It does not integrate with other systems properly. It does not have the security. And we need you to make this in a scalable, secure fashion. But, he was already saying, oh, but I don't see this taking more than 9 weeks.
Yeah. It was like,
if I've done this in 2 hours, right?
Jeez.
Surely.
Don't give me 6 months for this, right? It was already waiting. Don't give me 6 months for this, right?
Exactly. Don't give me more. Like it was already. So in one sense, he was humble enough to know that hey, this is
not production ready.
But at the same time, he was already making his guesstimate based on that.
But what's interesting is that always happened before, right? I don't know how many of you participated in a hackathon in your company, but usually the risk of a hackathon is that a lot of stuff gets built in 24 hours or 48 hours. And and usually product always got really excited about the ideas, but there was like this sort of rule of engagement saying, this is just a hack. This is throwaway code, right? Like this is not really the feature. And I think that although might be very tempting to think that, just vibing a little bit with Lovable, that you already have, a shipping ready product, people just need to also be educated. And again, because I think that AI is probably ahead of all of us. And so I think that we all need to learn how to interact with AI. And I think there is also this education curve that is not there yet. So exactly what you're saying, that people just assume that everything is good. And then guess what? Do you think, the company will be ready for a security breach, or for an incident at 2 a.m. will be the PM answering the pager? And again, so there's definitely some stuff that really needs to be well defined. A lot of the ways of working on the expectation that we are building. Because otherwise, I think that those sort of tensions will always arise. And we didn't even discuss, like the thing that Philippe asked about. So do we still need software engineers? Because truth be told, we are seeing software engineers being fired like we've never seen before. And sure, it depends a lot on how much appetite you have for conspiracy theories. But one of them, of course, is everyone right now uses cloud code. Tokens are super cheap. I don't know if you were an early user of Uber, but when Uber was launched, I don't know how much it was each ride, but it was like a flat fee. I think you paid like $8 or something like that, and you just
cheaper than
it was way cheaper. But guess what? The moment that it stopped being subsidized, like the prices go up. Now imagine that we are leaving 2025. All companies, I mean all companies, were about reducing costs, consolidation, making sure that no one was spending more than they should, shrinking all the budgets and stuff like that. And now all of a sudden, you have all these tokens that are very cheap to, at least so far, that will need to be paid somehow. And that money won't appear out of thin air. And so again, I think that we are still to see lots of friction and tension in companies because of that.
Okay, I can imagine. There was a question there.
Yeah, Pedro, I had a question regarding how do you think that these AI tools are impacting the junior devs and development?
Good
Oh
question.
gosh, that's a good one.
Because how do you see the quality of the code, their understandings of the basics of engineering, and the future?
That is definitely a great question because I think it changes dramatically the life of a junior engineer, right? Like I'm a father of two boys, 14 and 16, and the oldest one actually wanted at the beginning to be a software engineer. And
He said, no!
I kid you
No!
not. And last year I was like,
Not a software engineer!
I don't think that's a good idea because I was actually fearing a lot for that. I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like. And look, we don't even need to be, super kind of, trying to read in the stars. Imagine that you joined college 2 years ago. Do you really believe that your degree was updated to learn all of this stuff? So you enter university or college and you're coming out in a completely different world where probably everything that you learn is completely useless or close to because the game is changing so much. That can't be, there's nothing more terrifying than that. And so I think that junior engineers are definitely going through a super hard time because at the beginning we didn't need them, although then what happens to seniors, no one knows. Well, we'll figure it out later with the humanites, I guess. Now actually we need juniors because with AI we don't need the seniors because juniors are as capable as seniors. And now we actually see that we still need everyone and it's okay. I just think that the rules of the game are really changing. I think that probably they will start focusing less on code and much more on the building blocks, on the architecture, on the clean codes and this and this and that. So I think it's just a matter of really understanding what needs to be learned first. Because again, if you don't understand the principles, it's not just because you're writing beautiful messages to Lovable that everything is going to go fine. And so I think that you still need to learn a lot of the stuff. Probably just going to start focusing more on the abstraction layer. That probably when we were juniors, we had to be way more low level. That's how I see it.
No, that's a good point. I can chime in a little bit on that. It's a topic that I also like a lot. And again, especially on our company, we have a couple of junior people working with us. We're changing a lot the review process to not be so much about code reviews, but be much more about the spec reviews or the plan reviews.
Or the plan review, yeah.
Because when you do that, that's where you find logic gaps. That's where you find assumptions that were made. That's where you find questions that weren't made. And when you discuss that, it's very interesting because the juniors, they start discussing and thinking much more about architectural concerns much earlier on their career because of that, because they are not tied to learning a specific syntax or framework. Now, what happens is, and this is from our own experience at Octagon Labs, the role of the senior becomes much more about being a mentor and not being the great architect or the great knowledge guy of a specific framework. It has to be a role that is really concerned about taking time on is this person developing systems thinking skills, like Pedro was telling. And I think this is a big shift also for seniors too, because a lot of seniors are not that ready and willing to be mentors and take time to be mentors
Great points.
on to the point of not overreacting and say, again, this guy is an idiot. I don't have time for him. It happens.
That escalated pretty quickly.
But
No, but
I don't know if you've worked with software engineers,
no,
but
but I-
that's
but-
how
I get
quickly it escalates
And
too.
look, but
Uh,
because a senior
and-
doesn't need to be a great mentor, right? Like, being a senior engineer doesn't mean that you're a mentor,
It's true.
right? And that's the thing. Probably you have very different traits and skills.
It's true, and I think that's one of the interesting transitions that might happen over the years, and I think juniors might have a hard time or not, depending on who are the seniors that are mentoring them and taking time with them, to not just evaluate whatever they do as AI slop, but taking time to look, how did you thought this piece through?
It's interesting, Felipe, you're saying that because so pretty much what we are saying after being talking for almost an hour is that the human factor and some of these human skills, even in a world with AI, will become more important than ever.
Yeah,
It's about
I guess
the
so.
communication, the mentorship, the empathy, giving back, stuff that, of course, it's not is completely relevant for a machine. But so in an AI world, even the soft skills and the human traits will become more important than ever.
Yeah, I think that's so. I think so. I think
Interesting, right?
That's a good point. So
Question.
there was one question there.
One over there.
I was wondering, what's your workflow? Like, if you want to build a new feature or product, what is your workflow?
So right now, it didn't change dramatically. I think it just got a little bit enhanced. So for instance, we are replacing Figma with Lovable. We are now storing plans and MD files. That was something that we didn't do. So it's like, if you look from far away, things don't seem to change a lot. So you still have, the discovery phase, the specs, now you have the code, and you have the review. So those blocks, let's call it that way, they didn't change. The tools which you use there, they are changing, and sometimes even get to a point that you can even almost replace a human. So for instance, imagine, okay, a pull request is already being reviewed by God knows how many humans, right? But the moment that you start bringing CodeRabbit or GrabTile and things like that, sure, maybe there are some PRs that don't need to be reviewed. But again, like, I think that the stages are all still there. Just the tools that you use and the way that you can streamline the process becomes slightly different, at least as we speak.
And do you take the same time on these stages as you were doing before? Like, for example, on specking, on functional analysis, on
That's a good question. I think it's
on
a little bit
questioning or
I
on
think
coding and on code
that's
reviewing.
too soon to tell. I think it's too
Okay.
soon to tell. I think you can definitely see some, some exciting numbers. But again, it depends on the project, on the way that person is interacting, on how AI savvy the person is. And so I think that there's still a lot of noise between the signal for us to start having kind of firm answers. Say, oh, look, you know what? Like, we already kind of 3xing stuff, and that's why every time I read something like that, I giggle, because I don't think that anyone is ready to give a solid and true answer to that. I think people can have an idea, but I don't think that we are in too deep to get the real numbers to say we are way faster, this percentage, because I don't think that's true.
A few more
You have questions over there,
There was
Pedro?
one here from, you are very,
Hey, how's it going? Pedro, I know you run a group of tech leaders in Portugal, right?
Yes.
I was just curious that, imagine there was a AI fear index from 0 to 100. How would you say in that particular group, so CTOs, heads of engineering, how's that index going right now?
Oh, that's a good one.
By the way, 0 is like extreme fear, 100 is
It's
like,
crying in the corner, and 100 is complete already with the tattoo of AI.
Yeah. With Claude and
So here's the thing. I think that So I think that leaders are more excited than engineers, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, and why? Because, for instance, right? Imagine I haven't coded for 12 or 13 or 15 years, right? Like I was like, gosh, I don't want to see code. This is not attractive for me anymore. And guess what? With Cloud Code, I'm like, ooh, this is fun. Look at me.
You have a
code.
tattoo, right?
Right, I have a tattoo, right? I'm not going to show it, but I have. And why? Because you can actually build, and guess what? And you can build in a syntax that you don't even know.
Yeah.
That's how exciting it is. Even Kent Beck wrote some months ago saying, I didn't code for God knows how long. I'm back at doing that, right? I'm coding until 4 a.m. That's how excited I am. And so all of a sudden, AI and Cloud Code and whatnot can actually become fun. And so I think that for all of us old timers that we're getting, further away from the code, it's actually quite exciting. And because again, we try to see the system, we are trying to see how we can optimize it. And I think that we are approaching it with excitement. But again, the folks that are in the trenches, that I love them and respect them very much, they are caution optimistics. They are like, okay, I can see that this will be interesting, but I'm cautious because this might affect my career. I might lose my job. I might not become as important as I thought I was, some time ago.
Yeah.
And all of that is super valid.
Of course.
And so again,
it's very impactful. You make a life choice on a career, right?
And so like even the way that we get to something new and we cross the chasm, like everyone has a different, time to get there, right? Like everyone has a different way of doing that. And I think that we should all kind of, go towards that together. So going to your question, I think that in our group, people should actually be quite excited, I think. There will always be the naysayers, and again, people that are, just over-indexing on the poor experience. But I would tend to say that leaders are very excited. In the engineering side, not so much, but I don't know, like maybe a 50-50 on that side. There are already people that are already seeing it and witnessing and seeing the good out of it, but we still have some folks that are like, I'm just going slower. I know exactly where I should change the line of code. It's right there. Why should I be eating tokens and seeing the Cloud Code spinning and doing God knows what? And so
that's a very interesting tension, right? Engineering leaders are excited, on the trenches not so excited. Everyone who doesn't build software is super excited because they now can.
Can you talk?
It's a new joy. That makes a lot of sense. One question here, and then one here, and then the. Yeah, we have time for both. Don't worry.
Sure.
So thanks for the panel so far. Great. I have a question where I think companies used to enjoy the advantage when they were innovators because it took a few months for laggers to catch up. Now that is taking only 1 or 2 weeks, what do you think are the new modes for companies?
No, that's a good one. Like the way that I see is, I think the innovation becomes super important in the sense that the first one that gets there, tries to get the market by, for themselves. Now that building eventually becomes way faster, the moment that you will see the next Uber or the next Salesforce, it will be way more easy to replicate. I think that the way that companies can try to hold themselves, in their market share is the network, who is using it, the distribution. Again, we mentioned that some time ago, is how can I distribute this? I think that will become, or will get very quickly to the era of the marketeer, of the way that we distribute the software, and again, because it will never be the best software that will win. It will be the most connected, the one that people can use and benefit from. I'm using, you're using, and creating this sort of kind of adoption effects. And that's how I usually see that. Becoming the first to be the innovator, again, or you really create very fast the network, or you'll see copycats spawning left and right, and it will be super interesting, because that was actually a thing back in the day, right? Like every time someone created something, in Africa there is a Google. If you go to other countries like Iran and China, they also have their Google. So replicating business was always a thing. I think that now we have tools to do that way faster, and so businesses need to really be on their toes to defend their lawn. You know what I mean? To be super exciting to see that. It's a great question. That's my idea.
Over there.
Just a question. My company works more with SMEs, small medium
Mm-hmm.
And we are more focused on our customers' pain.
Okay.
How do you see the adoption of small companies to the use of AI? Because, like you said, even a small company has to buy some Salesforce or SAP
Yep.
package, but we develop some focal points they can use. How do you see the adoption of the market to that tools? Because, like you said, I'm the CEO of the company, I can develop something.
Yep.
Like this
No,
knowledge base,
100%.
the same kind of work. Some companies came back to us and show us a Lovable or something. I did this, but I need to
Yeah.
explore this to create the focal point. So how do you see this adoption? Because you said like we are removing Figma to start
Yep.
Lovable or Replit or more elaborated tools. How do you
Yeah.
see the companies?
No, that's a great one because so I definitely see SaaS struggling a lot in SMBs. So mid-market, I think, is still okay-ish, and enterprise is super safe, like super safe. I'm 100% sure that no one's going to vibe code Salesforce, all right, or Workday, or God knows what. And the thing about the SMBs is that, sure, like now everyone can build their own small use case, like we also had, kind of, these tailor-made developments back in the day. Now, it really depends on the thing that, again, is you can have all the machines in the world, but the day, as till it's proven, it's just 24 hours. And so even myself as a business person, am I going to focus on the core of my business? Or am I going to vibe code my HR application and my supplier's application, my ERP application? It will always be a matter of focus. And so sure, if you have the time, just go for it, or even on the weekend, why not, right? Maybe you have young kids and you need to clear the air and just vibe code some stuff. But I can definitely see SMBs with less appetite for SaaS and maybe more interested in reaching out to you, for instance, or to someone else that is I can vibe code a solution. It's going to cost you a fraction of a SaaS product. But again, I think that there will always be room for everyone. Okay, but I'm sure that SMBs, going for a big SaaS, probably that appetite will extremely reduce because, or they shouldn't even be customers in the first place. It will be a huge investment, and so maybe a studio can, create a solution for you, host it on Vercel or something like that. You have a login and a password, and probably it just tackles your use case. I think it will be super interesting, but SaaS in SMBs probably will need to be redefined. That's my take on that.
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit too.
Yeah, tell us about your experience.
Of course, I'm a bit biased. We also work.
Who will send you
Hmm?
some hugs? Who Souza will send you some hugs?
Oh, Souza.
Yeah, they send you some hugs.
Ah, of course. He should be here though. I should. Hugo.
We're watching you.
So yeah, so if you're on Mars, of course. So yeah, we kind of share a little bit the same space and same philosophy. And what we see at Octagon is there is a true. I think it still takes time for leaders to understand, but indeed there's an opportunity for SMBs to finally have slightly more tailored software than they ever had until now at on a much more cost-effective
100%.
approach. And I think vendors like us and like Mars can provide that in a way that it's not that it will be the people in the SMBs that will build those tools. It will be providers who are optimized in their operations to build those tools using AI native agencies, AI native builders that have methods and practices that they know that using the right tools, using Cloud Code, Codex, a set of methods and specs-driven
MD
development,
files.
and they will deliver reliable software, very tailored, in a fraction of time and cost than it usually happened before, right? And for SMBs, I think that's very powerful because when you think about SMBs, maybe we think about 5, 10 people companies, but they're not. I mean, a 50 people company, 100 people company is still an SMB.
Yeah, it
is still a place where you talk directly with the CEO for a decision, And it's not very far. It's like you don't have layers of approval, but a 100 people company already moves quite some money every month, right? And subscriptions like a SaaS or a Salesforce or some kind of CRM or maybe some kind of ERP, there's always big monthly costs. Then they have customizations that they need to have with consultants, and then in the end they end up using Excel.
Everything compounds. Yeah, no.
And in the end, that's the reality. And in the end, they end up using Excel because the costs before, even though it is SaaS, they really compound and they become expensive to create. And then what these people feel is that it's not really tailored to me. And then they would go to a software agency and I want a really tailored software, and then it would cost like 5 times more.
Yep.
Right? And so
that's
the
a
obvious
true value prop.
the obvious solution is let's go back to Excel. Now, I think there's ways that you now go to a software development agency and I have this very specific way where I manage my logistics and where I manage my suppliers, and I need this tool that does this, and that. And you can clearly see in that, okay, that would take me 3 weeks, right? A person. One of my AI builders, together with Claude, together with Codex, together with whoever I name my agents. We build that in 3 weeks. That will cost you 3 weeks. It will not cost you a team of 5 for 2 months, which was costing 2 years ago or something. And I think that's a huge opportunity for small and medium businesses to become highly operational efficient on building tailored solutions, which is actually something that enterprises always had, which was the opportunity of having digital operations, although there's always the change management associated, but they could have highly tailored digital operations for them, which obviously increased their throughput. And small and medium enterprises never really had that, unless they always had this big investment for them. So I think there's a big opportunity for SMBs, and I think there will be a market where more companies like Octagon, like Mars, like individual AI builders will be working with SMBs to build them these tailored solutions that are highly efficient for their
I agree.
operation.
I think that the SaaS business will remove from SMBs at all, because the value prop is a killer, right? Like cheaper and tailor made. Like,
Yeah, I think
why should companies adapt to a standard?
after you go beyond 10, 15 people, 10, 20 people, it starts to become like, even if you have a Notion on 20 people and you have the business, it scales, right? It's 10 euros a month. No, but we're 20. Oh, now that's 20 to 200 euros a month. Okay, that's 2,400 a year, right? Oh, now I want to upscale from the basic tier to the AI tier. Oh, that's 10 more times per person per year. And suddenly those costs really scale. And suddenly you have a tool that's supposed to be cheap, and now it costs you easily 5,000 euros per year, maybe 25 euros on a 5-year plan, right? Yeah. And maybe if you grow, it will continue to scale. And then you also need consulting services to configure it for you, right? And so maybe you can, and you have a very specific issue, and maybe you could just...
No, the TLDR is the market will self-correct, and I think that the SaaS business will always live in the enterprise world there, where you need all, the SOC tools, the GDPRs, the securities and resiliency and scalability, and the SMBs that probably were using some SaaS without really having the need to do that. Like we give an example here of the Salesforce and the Workdays of the world, that will have now an opportunity for studios to really develop tailor-made solutions that will be much more cost-effective for everyone. Yeah. And I think that even at the end of the day, it will be more interesting for everyone. So SaaS can focus on the enterprise and mid-market, and the SMB will be left for people that really can enable companies to win on their needs instead of having people just adopting standards. That I think is going to be wonderful, being honest.
There's still a lot of software to be built in the world.
The exchange of coders, because we don't need coders. I think coders like in our company, they don't look always for the code, but they look for the big project. Because if you are a coder, you only code. Don't
sure,
know
true.
button does, or it works. Okay, it works. But consultant can be coded, can be consultant, can know all the project from the beginning to the end, till the beginning, the pain of the customer, delivers the code and the project to the customer, explains the code, and understands what the code does. I think it's a good way to enter and to show how work is done with the small company.
Absolutely. One more question before we wrap up. From the back.
So I was wondering, do you envision any changes on the engineering department and the overall company department? Because I believe that AI will make like the skill set that will be required to be good in like in the near future will kind of be the same for product managers, engineering managers, IT, whatever, right? So do you envision like any changes in the organization that will adapt because of this skill set will be, in my opinion, at least compressed?
That's a good one. I think it will inevitably change, right? I even think that there will be functions that probably you won't need them anymore, right? Imagine, for instance, quality assurance, QA, right? So even QA, like you had functional QAs, you had QA engineering, people just wrote tests, right? And even that in some departments are not even used anymore. And so I definitely see AI, as long as it's being adopted and evolving, some roles that will become obsolete. Imagine like a release manager or a project manager, maybe someone is just staring at a Gantt chart and yelling at people, right? Like you can have an agent doing that, and probably in a nicer way. Imagine, right, Taylor Swift, screaming at you because you're late on the project. I don't know, stuff like that. But that could be
That's a
interesting.
very interesting idea. Taylor Swift screaming at
You
you.
heard it first here. No, I'm kidding.
Save that.
So I definitely think that it will change a lot. So it will change, like we asked here, the software development lifecycle. I think it will inevitably change. I don't think it changed so far, but it will change. I think roles will change for sure. But again, I think that the basics will always be there. You will always need the builders. You will always need the visionaries, and you will always need the people that that will approve and deal with the aftermath of consuming the product, complaints and whatnot. So I think that the basics will always be there. Now the functions, I think that will change for sure. Even BPAs and like, my job is just to take a look to complaints and go through to, I don't know, reports, to do something. Like you can do that with AI now, right? And so I definitely see some roles dramatically changing, some of them being completely not needed anymore. But again, other roles will emerge, right? And I think that will be the exciting part. That is, it's not that we don't need humans anymore. Probably just don't need humans to do stuff that would take like weeks and probably like boring as hell. And actually now people will be focusing on things that will be just different and hopefully more exciting. That's how I see kind of the world really changing around AI.
No, that makes sense. Thank you, Pedro. Any final word you want to share here with the audience before we wrap up?
No, for sure. So first and foremost, I don't have an issue with Salesforce. That's number one. No, number two is I'm from a futuristic standpoint, I'm very excited with the future, as you can see. I'm definitely very curious to understand how department will accommodate the cost of tokens as they go up. I think that will be probably the next big topic that we'll need to start talking about very soon, because that will affect everyone's life. I'm super curious to see orchestration of agents, because that to me will be the next frontier of what software development will look like. And yes, again, I think that the future will be amazing, and I just hope that people embrace it. And even if you don't like it, embrace, learn from it, and have an educated opinion of why you don't like it. Don't like it because you decided that you didn't want to like it, And so that's probably what I'm here to say.
Cool. Thank you, Pedro. Wrapping up, thanks everyone for being here tonight at the end of the day. I hope the conversation was interesting. A little bit about AI Builders Club. AI Builders Club is a community here in Lisbon. We organize these kind of meetups, always mostly in this format. We might be trying a few other formats at some point, more hackathon-y like, but always in this fireside chat manner, conversation with interesting people. The event is brought to you by Camoodle, by Octagon Labs, and by a bunch of people who are voluntary here and just like to organize this stuff. Thank you a lot for Cloudflare for giving us
Beautiful space.
The beautiful space. Very pleased.
Fun to have everyone. Thank you for visiting.
And finally, just one final shameless plug I want to leave. We were talking about orchestration. Today at Octagon Labs, we just launched a beta version of one of the tools that we will be releasing soon. It's called Maestro. It's an orchestration platform. We will be doing beta launch soon. If anyone wants to give it a shot, feel free to reach out to me today or via LinkedIn, or just check it out. It's something we will be releasing probably sometime in March, but we will be opening up a few beta slots for anyone who is interested. It's very particularly focused at non-technical product people. So if you think that's you, feel free to reach out to me too. And again, thank you a lot. I guess that's it, Pedro.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure to have you here. I was
you, Fran.
absolutely sure it was going to be a great conversation. Thank you. And that's it. Thank you, guys.